Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chat. My name is Bryan Kearney. Absolutely delighted today to be joined by the legend that is Fergie. Fergie, thank you very much for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Whoa. Yes, sir. Good. Good to be on. Actually, I've been enjoying the podcast, so fair play to you.
Awesome. Really good to speak to you. I only actually saw, one of my friends actually sent it to me the other day, that you did a podcast with Mallorca Lee in September. he sent it to me on during the week, and I go, yeah, he's Fergie's actually, I'm doing a podcast with him this week, and I love those podcasts that Mallorca has done. They're fantastic, but I didn't listen to it yet because I didn't want it to influence this one, or to sort of make me think about what I was going to ask. So I'm going to go back and listen to that after this one. But thanks very much for coming on the show. I'm just, as I said, never actually met you before. So you're living over in Vegas now. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been over here 10 years now. Yeah, totally different way of life, you know. I got asked a lot why I moved over, and I just needed to change, mate, you know. That's why I came over here. You know, I started DJing when I was very young. 12, I was back home. Went on my first tour when I was 16. And then, I was been touring a lot. So I actually got the chance to come here, and I snapped it up because I was kind of sick of flying. You know, I was doing like 15, 20 flights a month. You know, so it was a nice break for me, you know.
Yeah. So how have you felt? Well, if you're trying to get away from things, I suppose one of the best places you could go is Vegas in terms of getting away from the madness, but the adult playground that it is.
Yep, generally that would be the thinking. But 2 years before I even came to Vegas, you know, I wasn't even partying, mate. You know, I wasn't drinking, or anything like that. So it was a no-brainer for me, you know. My friend invited me here, offered me, some gigs. It meant I didn't have to travel. It meant I could get in my car, drive to work, and come home. And that's what it was, work. It's very important to establish that phrase, because many people ask me, how did you change from playing techno to going playing EDM? And I was going to work. I never had worked as a DJ before. It was never my work until I came here, you know. So, and I was fine with that, you know. I was fine with that. It was what I needed to do. And then it was actually very enjoyable from learning how to DJ again, because I did become a better DJ in terms of reading the room and being able to play different styles of music and making it kind of having to make it all cohesive. You know, it's a different skill playing in Vegas for sure. Not taking anything away from being booked to play a techno event, but when you're going to play a techno event, you're going to play techno.
Yeah.
So people know what they're going to get, pretty much. Playing in Vegas, it was a totally different thing. It was very hard to change into it. The way they like things here is very, very different. And there was parts of me was like, what am I doing? This is like so far from where I want to be musically. But, you know, again, I wanted to make changes in my life. There was some sacrifices made, and ultimately, you know, it's allowed me to come back.
Yeah.
You know, seeing one side of it has made me want to come back to the other side. So I've got no complaints, you know.
Yeah, obviously you're in Vegas now, but you started out in a small place called Larne. I've heard the stories about you starting out when you're really young, and the infamous stories about just having to stand on a milk crate when you're doing your first shows, etc. So can you sort of be interesting to hear how how you got into it at such an early age, and you managed to make those connections and sort of got into playing clubs at a very, very young age, because it's a very interesting tale.
So how it kind of really started was my dad's friend was a DJ over in Scandinavia and stuff, and he had left Ireland years and years ago, and he came back. He used to live in the same street as my dad, and his parents still lived there as well. So he just came down basically casually, see my mum and dad. Hi, how's it going? Met me, and I was like 12 at the time, just 12. And he was going to the arena that night. He was very good friends with Robbie Nelson and Mark Dobbin and, all that crew.
Yeah.
And he jokingly said to my mum and dad, I'll take Robert with me. Unbeknown to him, my mum and dad, I already had a long leash. I was already doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And and my mum said, yeah, of course. And the look on his face was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, we went, Robbie Nelson, Robert Lindsay Mason, Mark Dobbin, me, Mike Collins. I remember them picking me up in Mark Dobbin's father's Ford Escort, white one. And Robert Lindsay Mason was driving, who was then a councillor of Larne. He was a councillor. They called him the 5-deck wizard. He was this kind of eccentric American guy, but he was drinking a bottle of Hennessy on the way to the gig, and he was driving like.
Yeah.
I'm sandwiched in between Robbie Nelson and Mike Collins here in this Ford Escort, and we're going to the arena, and the stories that these guys are telling me, and we're driving in the Armagh, the stop signs were missing, and it was like sniper on patrol. Like, this is in
91, 92 probably, wasn't it?
Yeah, 92, 93, 92, yeah. So it was peak time kind of.
Height of the troubles.
Armagh was Armagh was full throttle. And that was kind of my baptism fire, so to speak, It was actually Robbie's first night playing at the arena. It was his tryout gig. They were having him down to try him out. Like, you trying out Robbie Nelson, that's hilarious to me.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend. I've known Robbie about 17, 18 years. He's some man, absolute legend.
And that was the first night I met. I went out with him, and Robbie was a huge I wouldn't say supporter, because I wasn't DJing then, but he was we just really got on well, and he was constantly asking my mum and dad if it was okay for me to go to the clubs with him. And I was selling his tapes and stuff, and then I was selling them at school and stuff like that, So Robbie was a big influence for me back then. I remember being in the arena and people just walking into the club, going straight on the dance floor and lying down on the floor. And thinking, what is going on here? Like, it's absolutely mental. And there would be like Mozart playing or some stuff like that. Was crazy. And then Mark Dobbin, as soon as everybody was in the club, would be on the microphone, and the music would start, and the light would come out of the ceiling, and everybody would just start raving and stuff. And obviously there was chins everywhere, and people trying to like their eyebrows and whatnot. But them days were incredible in the arena, and I didn't really know the difference in different types of music, and that was a part of the conversation on the way home, trying to talk to them guys who were absolutely wasted, and asking them, and I was like, well, that's house music, this is trance, and blah, blah, blah. Well, why is it trance, and why is it house? And, so that was the questions that was going on then, because it was very fresh, 1992. I mean, that whole thing started kicking off kind of late
80s, early 90s, yeah.
So it was very, very fresh to be kind of in and around it. And at that time, people think I joke, when I call Larne the DJ capital of the world. I mean, that's what it felt like, It's so many amazing DJs that came from there or spent a lot of time down there. Even a lot of the Belfast guys, you know, Malloy, Jacko, obviously Belfast, but they were spending a lot of time in Larne, you know, Marty C, Glebe Dobbin, Sticky, Robbie Nelson, you know, it was a great time for me to be in and around that. Sticky, I think I mentioned Sticky. Mark Dobbin had a record store, so I wasn't really going to school much in them days, so I was going down, I was playing pitch and toss every day. Fuck me, I didn't even mention Glebe. I get into trouble. If I miss somebody's name out, you wouldn't believe how much that they let me know. Like, I'm like, Jesus, I've mentioned you guys for years, and it's so hard to try not to forget anybody, but you do sometimes. But yeah, so I spent a lot of time down the record store, Sounds Good Music, with Mark and Glebe and everybody, and all the DJs that were constantly coming in buying records on a Thursday, you know, and just got really friendly with them all. So, you know, I was going to Kelly's again, 92, early 93 with Malloy, Jacko, Marty C and all these. So I'm like seeing this all unfold, you know, and just like, what is going on here? Like,
and when you were 13 and 14 at these gigs with the lads, were you like out in the crowd, or were you on stage hidden away so no one could see you?
I was on stage to begin with, you know, and then I was getting to it.
Good man.
And I mean, I was already smoking and stuff and drinking at that age, you know. I started smoking, drinking when I was 11, so I'll never forget that. I mean, I remember being all my friends are always older, you know, so I remember them giving me cigarettes, and I didn't ever want to inhale it, so I used to blow it. And my beer, I hated the taste of beer, so I'd be giving it the old
tipping it, yeah.
But what a great place to be growing up in Northern Ireland and in that era. Magical. Then to be playing, you know, I started playing at Coldwater at a really young age, you know. How that actually came about was Mark Dobbin wouldn't let me in Coldwater. He said, you'll only get in if you're working. So I was working in there from when it opened, 1994. I started working in there. And this all changed very quickly from when I was working in there to me getting gigs in there. But I remember working in there as a kid, and just having that feeling of excitement, but not really knowing what was going on. Seeing these beautiful women, like on their little wee mini skirts and their pop socks. These big pull-up socks they used to wear. And you were just walking about there being horny as fuck. You're like, oh my God. And it was at the time when that Calvin Klein perfume came out and everybody was wearing it. Like the whole place just smelled. Yeah. But the whole place just smelled of that. And they made me wear this red boiler suit. You know what I mean? So I just felt like a raver from the beginning, because anybody that was performing on stage had these boiler suits on. So my job was to go around and take the empty bottles and glasses off the tables and stuff. But it was just mental to be in there, just seeing the crowd, seeing the energy, feeling the energy, and just walking through all that. You know, it was mental. It's like people dancing together, but dancing on their own and doing their own dance, and like it was all very
fresh. It's just brand new. Yeah.
It was a personal thing, but it was a collective as well. It was. I didn't know that at the time. It's only looking back now at videos and looking back now at old footage and looking at their clothes that they're wearing, and you know, it was all such a personal statement and an identity that everybody had. It was amazing.
As you were saying, like that time, all that new music, it was completely new. As you said, you were walking into those clubs, you'd never seen anything like it before. But at the same time, that was at the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and it was very segregated up there. I remember, Larne is where you used to get the boat over to Stranraer, is that correct? I remember that when I was a kid, I went up there to travel to Scotland, but I remember that we drove up there and we took a wrong turn down down the street we shouldn't be going down with a Southern Irish reg, and it just makes me think about what Belfast is like now, because our Northern Ireland it's completely different to what it was like back then. And I was speaking to Snyder before. I really do think that the dance scene had a massive part to play in the peace process in Northern Ireland, 100%, without a doubt.
Big time. It was huge. You know, there would be certain places that you would go that would be predominantly Protestant clubs, you know. Like the first place I played in Belfast was a bar called the Alexandra on York Road. Now, at the end of the night, they would come in, tripping the colour, you know, marching in with the flags, and I had to play the Queen. You know, we had the 7-inch record, the Queen, and that was when I used to DJ with Geordie Parker in there, Geordie P, way back. And so it was very, very, very tense. You know, I remember them coming up to me and telling me stand up straight and all that, you know, and it was very, 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 very tense, you know, and then you would have places like the Network, and it was just very, very tense, but that kind of that was part of the energy, you know. It was part of the energy. Then you would go to places like the Ulster Hall. That was the first place I ever seen everybody together. You know, fair enough, everybody was on one side and everybody was on the other, but you know, you have the Dream Frequency coming on playing We Are One Nation and stuff, and all that sort of thing. The feeling was unbelievable. I mean, we even got kicked out because of a bomb scare in there, you know. Hellraiser, and if you ever listen to the tapes, you can hear that in the recording, like where's Carl Cox? They're like, well, ask him where Carl Cox is, and they want to get everybody out. And we eventually got back in, and the atmosphere was incredible. You know, that's what kind of really stuck with me, even to this day, trying to find that vibe again. You know.
It'd be hard to find something as fresh and so new as it was back then, and as you said, like the clubs up there was the Met Arena, there was Kelly's, there was loads of different Circus up there as well. Obviously, This is a little bit before my time. I'm a few years younger than you, but I liked reading about the history of clubbing and where it all started, and I have a huge amount of respect for people like Robbie Nelson and Carl Hamilton, all these guys who were the ones to start this, because if it wasn't for guys like that, I wouldn't have a career doing what I want to do, you know.
You look at big X-Ray, you know, there's not enough said about Ray. You know, Ray brought so many people over the Harmony, you know. Huge events. But yeah, there's not really, I would say he's probably talked about the least. Like, there's not enough information.
Respect, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what he kind of cultivated, you know, and then he went on to create that moved into the more hardcore stuff, you know, which was only really him putting that sort of thing on, you know, with the intelligence parties, and you know, you're having Tizer and all them boys of MC Dudley. You know, all them guys. I mean, I could mention all of them, but that was just a whole scene that he created that came out of the hardcore rave, then turned into the happy hardcore, you know, and that was all the tapes we were getting as kids, you know, listening to all that stuff. But it was a phenomenal time, and I think, without jumping too far forward, but you know, look at the talent that's coming. It's from back home. There's always been incredible talent, but it seems to be reaching even further now. You know, so many great talents.
Especially even now, like you look at like the likes of Bicep, Matador, all different types of electronic music. Ireland, the island of Ireland for producing artists is ridiculous. Even like actors, bands, like it's for such a small island, the impact that it has on the arts is incredible.
Because there's so much character there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's so much character, and you learn having that character from. You're a kid with your granny, whether she's in there fucking telling you a couple of wee stories or something. You know what I mean? There's something to say, whether it's from the songs that we grew up singing, whether they're Catholic songs or Protestant songs, or whether they're just folk songs or whatever it is. There's always a wee skip in you, do you know what I mean? Or a wee bit of a jig in your You know what I mean? There's always the crack. It's the crack, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the word. That's the word. Yeah.
That is it. They hit the nail on the head, you know, and plenty of personality, you know, plenty of personality. It was, I mean, obviously I left when I was 16. You know, I first left home when I was 14. I left Larne to go and live in Belfast, because at the time I was playing at the Alexandra on a Friday night. I was playing at the airport in Antrim on the Saturday night, and I was 14. And that place, wow, the airport was so intense. The police wouldn't even go there. I've gone outside there, and I'm not joking. I've seen a guy's neck being cut out with a big pint bottle harp. I've seen a bit of an ear on it. Like, the police wouldn't go there, mate. It was mental. It was so ferocious place to be if you were the wrong person, or you were
said the wrong thing.
Or, you know, the first night I ever played in there, my brother was with me actually, and the electric went off. And I used to play in this room downstairs. All I can describe it was like that scene in Blade where the blood's coming down and stuff. Obviously, there was no blood coming down, but that just intensity. And the electric went off, and they all started throwing chairs in a DJ booth and bottles, and it was absolutely mental. It was mental. But that was the only time that happened. But it was such an intense place, incredible place. And that's the reason why I never seen Tony De Vit the first 2 times he came over to play in Coldwater, because I was playing at the airport, and I was like, well, I was buying Tony's records. I'm like, well, I'm not taking a night off to go and see anybody, you know what I mean? The third time he came was the birthday party, and I actually did take a night off, and thank fuck I did. But I went down, and you know, they let me stand in a DJ booth, and I tortured him. I tortured the life out of him. You know, writing down all his tracks and talking to him in between mixes. Like, who does that? Like, every mix. And he never told me to piss off, you know. And he gave me his number, because I was like, there was no way he was getting out of there without not giving me his number, you know. And as you know, in Ireland, most nightclubs back then were in a hotel. So, you know, after Tony was finished, Tony he would come over, then he would fly back to trade, because the set was at 8 o'clock in the morning, so he'd get an early flight and go back to London. But I said to him, you know, I'll help you up there, room your records and stuff, and I'll go up in this room and that, and talking to him. And he's asking me questions about himself, and I told him I left school really early on, and I'd take my t-shirt off, and I grab his hand to put it on my chest, and he pulls his hand away and all that. And I'm like, what are you at, you weirdo? And I didn't know he was gay or anything, you know what I mean? I'd never knowingly met any gay people. You weren't kind of walking around Northern Ireland back then. It was unspoken, right? It was different, you know? And I still didn't know. I went down into the after party they used to have in Coldwater underneath the stage. And I'm walking in, they're all calling me Fergie the faggot magnet. And I'm wondering what they're talking about, you know. And you know, it wasn't till I've been speaking to Tony quite a lot on the phone. I phone him probably 3 or 4 times a week on my mum's phone. Somebody told me back then, if you know, the phone used to touch, if you done like 10 zeros, bum, 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 then you put the number in, then it was free.
Mm.
It's not. It's not free. Anyway, every time I phoned Tony, he would pick the phone up every time. And, you know, then he started coming over more, and he would stay at my mum and dad's house, and got to know my mum and dad. And still, we didn't know Tony was gay, you know. And he just... Some people are like being really Queenie
Flamboyant,
and blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Tony was just, he didn't, that just wasn't him. Never found out until I was invited. He invited me to go and stay with him for a week. And I was so excited. And he called me up. He said, "You can't come." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because you're really young and it could look strange." And I was like, "Nah, I'm going all against this." And he just said, "I'm a puff," and put the phone down. And then his friend Alex called me up, and we eventually got it sorted, and I went over for a week holiday in 1996. And that is also when the ceasefire broke, and it was all on the news. And Tony, being Tony and not really understanding this was normal life for us, so, I was freaked out, and he's like, "Oh, you can't go back. Let's, stay here while it calms down," and stuff like that. Do you want to stay here? And I was like, "Of course I do." Like every weekend I'm going to like Money Pennies, Gatecrasher, Cream, Trade, everywhere. Who's not going to want to stay there as a 16-year-old, And that's what happened in 11 years I was there then.
You ended up staying where he lived, you moved over to, and you stayed there for 11 years, was it? Yeah.
Well, that was me in England for 11 years. Obviously, I was with Tony for a good few years, and, Tony passed away 1998.
Was it, yeah.
Which was unbelievable. Terrible, 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 terrible. One of the worst things ever to kind of see or go through, especially as a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And how exactly did you deal with it?
It was very, very strange. I remember going in to see Tony on the Tuesday night. Actually, England were playing Argentina. It was the night David Beckham got sent off. It was Michael Owen's first England appearance. And I remember being in there with Tony, and he was really bad. And he started saying all this stuff to me like, I'm not gonna get to see you doing well. I'm not gonna be able to see it. And he was saying all this really heartfelt stuff to me. And I just was thinking, he was just heavily sedated and, stuff like that. And obviously he was very ill. And then next day I got a call, he was dead. So it was mind blowing, incredible. Like it was so scary. Like I was, living in a bed set at the time, and I don't know why this happened, but at nighttime I was so scared to even look out the window in the dark. I kept thinking I'd see Tony. It's mad. Like my head was so like, and not even that I should be scared of seeing Tony, but it was just really, I don't know what that was. It was just confusion, just like not really knowing what was going on. I guess it was just grieving, not. Yeah. But there wasn't a lot of time for it was a few days, and he got buried on the 10th of July, and the family, he was meant to play God's Kitchen that night, and the family were like, you got to do his gig. I'm like, fucking hell. I was like, Jesus. So here I am in God's Kitchen, having to play this Tony De Vit gig, which was incredibly emotional, obviously, just for everybody there, It was mental. I don't even know if I was really there. I mean, I don't know. It was such a blur thinking back on it, but from that gig, then that's when everything really changed for me, because then everybody wanted me to fulfill all his dates, you know, and the family wanted me to fulfill his dates. And it just went mental. You know, then I was doing Tony's Diary, basically. And yeah, my whole world really, really went into kind of fucking overload from that, you know. And the experience I had, obviously I've been DJing for quite a few years before that, but, you know, now you were getting big attention, you know. You're doing interviews and stuff, and, you know, you were, it really changed, because before that, you know, getting really known as being a hard house DJ, so you really had that label then, you know, which was something that Tony was all, I mean, Tony brought the hard house sound to the masses for sure, but he wasn't just a hard house DJ, and that was a battle he always had, because he wasn't just playing hard house at Cream and Miss Moneypennies, you know, stuff like that. You know, he was playing across the board.
He was like the DJ's DJ, almost like the way everyone now, Carl Cox is like everyone's favourite DJ, especially all the DJs. That's what Tony De Vit was like in the 90s. Now, obviously, I'm too young to have ever seen him play or anything, but I've heard some of his sets, and obviously The Dawn is one of my favourite songs ever, and I Don't Care, all the amazing remixes he's done, 99 Floor Elevators, I know all that stuff, but like, he's just, he was the DJ's DJ, because I listened to a podcast that Mallorca did with BK, and he had a very similar story about how he was playing a trade and the effect that Tony's passing had on him and the effect that it had on the hard house scene and stuff, and everyone had so much respect for him.
It was huge, you know, and trade, just to talk about trade, you know, trade, when I was talking about, you know, I was in search of that incredible Irish energy and excitement, and I got, the only similar vibe I got to that was when I went to trade, and I was thrust into this kind of gay underworld. It was phenomenal. It was, that energy in there was unbelievable. It was just, because there is me again in this fresh scene that I'd never been exposed to before. So it was totally new to me. So that it was, the energy in there was electric. I mean, the first time I walked in there with Tony, I thought it was a bit strange, you know, and I'm walking in here, and, you know, there's these big, huge muscle guys, you know what I mean, wearing these little shorts and angel wings and shit on their back. You know, what the fuck's that all right? You'll not be getting that up in York Road, mate. You know what I mean? But I remember going to the DJ booth. I remember taking half a pill, going straight back out and dance floor, and just get my top off, and then all of a sudden I'm just not feeling so sure about what's going on. And I went back in the DJ booth, and I stayed in there for weeks. Anytime we went to trade, I used to dread it. I'm like, it was so intense. I was never against gays. I didn't really know much about it. It was just so intense. The music was hard. The energy was so, like, you were packed in there, you know? And it was so intense, and there would be, you know, you would see the guys kissing each other, but it would be so, like, violently kissing. And I'm like, wow, this is mental, you know? And it was freaking me out, you know. I didn't feel comfortable out in the thick of it. I was okay in the DJ booth, because the DJ booth was soundproofed. There was a door on, there was a lock on the door and everything. And all it did was make people want to wind me up even more, you know, because they really believed that I was Tony's, you know, I was obviously having a bit with Tony, you know what I mean? So they kind of liked to wind me up even more. And it wasn't until Lawrence Malice, the owner of Trade, came in and he was like, listen, you know, you just need to go out and enjoy yourself. This is no way to be. And, you know, just give a few of them a kiss and they'll leave you alone. So I just went out, and because they always kissed each other to welcome, you know, to greet each other. So I just was kissing everybody, you know what I mean? I just went out and kissing everybody, and the whole thing just changed. It was just a lot calmer, you know. And but you know, Tony, even when Tony first started playing trade, Tony would be throwing up outside. It was intense. Like, he was so nervous, you know. And he got me my first gig in there. The trade DJs never changed, ever. Alan Thompson, Malcolm Duffy, Steve Thomas, Tony De Vit, Ian M, Pete Wardman, Tall Paul. That was the lineup. If one of the DJs couldn't make it for the gig, then the other one done a longer set. You know, maybe Steve would cover for Tony, you know. But there would be no new DJs allowed. Once a year, they would do a thing in the back room called the Trade Test Lounge. And Tony invited me to play in there. And I was 16 at the time. It was when I first went over. And I remember putting my first record on. There was this big, huge monitor in the DJ booth. And it, for some reason, it just kept bouncing the needle. I was like, oh, fuck me. And everybody came in the club because I was Tony's boy to hear me play. And it was like all the other DJs that weren't playing at the time. Lawrence Malice, Rod Lay, like all the local London promoters and stuff, just because they all loved Tony. And this needles keeps jumping me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like the worst nightmare. And this big tranny came over, took a bit of chewing gum out of his mouth and just got the arm of the needle, put it on, and then it was all good. Put a bit of wheat on the needle, and I played my set. And then they invited me to start covering for Tony when he wasn't there, which didn't go down well at all. Then everybody really hated me then. Jesus. You know, in the main room.
Yeah.
It wasn't good for a while. They really did not like it. Not the punters, the DJs and the people on the fringes who wanted to be DJs, and it was a big statement. It was a big statement, you know. I was a straight guy playing in there, and I was just very young, and it was very, very intense time. So,
I'd say it was. I have a similar sort of story with regards to someone that you were very close to in the scene. Obviously, Tony did so much for you and your career, but like around 15 years ago, I became very friendly with Barry Conlon, who was resident at Inside Out in the Arches, and we were very similar people. I was starting to sort of make music at that time, and he was playing my tracks, and he was coming over staying in my house, and then I was going over staying with him and his fiance, and he was doing an Essential mix live at the Arches in 2008, and I went over and stayed with him, and he was after being over staying with me because we were working on music together for him to play in the Essential mix. But on the day of the Essential mix, he said he wasn't feeling well. He just said he'd no energy. He didn't really feel well. But he still went, played the Essential mix. He played about 6 or 7 of my tracks in the Essential mix, and I was staying with him in his house, and we were back having a little party afterwards. But he wasn't really getting involved. He was just sort of saying, "I'm too tired. I'm going to bed." And a couple of days later, I heard that he went into hospital, and he had suspected meningitis. And I was like, what the fuck's going on here? So I thought everything was going to be fine. And at the time, I was in college. I was doing an apprenticeship, electrical apprenticeship. So I was doing time in college for tech. And my phone rang, and I was Barry's manager. And he just said, I had some bad news. Barry's gone. I was there, gone where? Where's he gone? And he's passed away. And I was like, what? How is this possible? So he was after getting a real rare form of meningitis that literally 5 days earlier I had been over in his house staying with him, and we were at the Arches. He played his set, And then 5 days later, he was gone. So it was just, I don't know. I don't even know whether I really properly dealt with it. And like it's similar to yourself, because for me, I always feel like my big break, or the biggest show that sort of got me going in terms of my international shows, was at a place called Sunrise in Poland. And this was a show that I wasn't even supposed to play. This was a gig that Barry was supposed to play, but I was. They chose me to take his place. So that I've now, like, I still think of it as one of the best gigs I've ever done. I gave it absolutely everything. I felt like I was possessed doing the show. I know you said when you played for Tony, it felt like you weren't present, or it wasn't real. But for me, it was like the opposite. It was like I was absolutely possessed playing that set, and that I had to give my best possible performance that I could. So from that, for me playing that set at a gig that I shouldn't have been playing at because one of my mates was after dying, I sort of carried this guilt with me a little bit for a few years, going like, because then things started getting better and better and better for me, and I still carried this guilt going like, I should have never played that gig. That was Barry's gig to play. My career is progressing because my mate died and I took his place. And it's probably still there a little bit. I know it's probably, like, I haven't really spoken about it, but it's sort of how I felt for a long time, that I just felt like my big break came because my mate died, and it's sort of hard for me to sort of deal with. But at the same time, knowing the person that he was, he wouldn't want me thinking like that in any way. So I'm just, you said something similar, that because Tony passed away, you sort of stepped into his spot and started playing. Did you ever sort of feel anything like that, because your career sort of went from here to here as soon as Tony passed?
Still do.
Yeah.
Still do. And it's exactly, I never knew that story at all. That's unbelievable, man. That is so unbelievable. Obviously, I mean, Barry was, hitting the legendary status, and what a following he had.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that story. That's so sad.
Yeah, viral meningitis is what he had, and just it was so hard because like for a couple of months then after that, a few times I went over and stayed with his fiance. Just this, I don't know how anyone can get through it, because they were like, that happened. He died on the 24th of April, and they were supposed to get married in July, and then in July was when I did that gig, and like she never got to marry the person who she loved more than anything else, and it was just a very strange sort of time where I didn't really deal with it. I'd say 2008 was the year that I did more partying than I've ever done in my entire life. So my way of probably dealing with the grief was to just go wild, that sort of way, instead of facing it. But
everybody in different ways.
Yeah,
For sure. But that's incredible. And yeah, I mean, you'll probably never have answers for that. And I'm kind of glad I don't have any answers for it, because it's like it makes me turn to it and think about it a lot, and the what ifs and stuff, and whatever way I can recall or think about Tony, it's welcomed, whether it's questions or questions that will never be answered, and you just, it's just thankful for the time we did have, I'm sure it's the same for you. It's really hard to put into words, man. It's like, I've never, like you've never ever been in that situation. I'm never in it again, but I was like, how do you deal with that? Like, it's totally, it's a huge pressure on there as well. It's obviously you've seen the huge, I had a huge backlash from when I wanted to change the music, and that was incredible, incredible energy from people. Hateful. And that was hard to take as a kid, I was 20 years old. And, and it was stemmed a lot of it from two things: people having, the missing Tony, having the love and respect for what Tony had built, and seeing me as the person to carry on this legacy. And also being seen to be the person that was destroying the legacy, but they're only really thinking of it in one way. They had forgot that Tony was one of the most forward-thinking DJs. They had just kept a compartment in their mind that Tony was a hard house DJ. So they weren't understanding my evolution. They weren't understanding that I started DJing when I was 12. Why would I not progress as an older man, 20 years old, having been playing for 8 years, 7 years already. And the questions I always did ask myself, what would Tony be doing? Like, what would Tony be looking for? Like, I always question, okay, Tony made The Dawn. It's the least hard house record he ever made. What's he go? So I always had that in my mind, and I was always questioning stuff like that. And some of the worst thing about it was, I guess, it was at the time when message boards and forums were coming online. So I was getting it so much from every angle, and it was a new kind of phenomenon for people. So people felt that, their point of view was very important, and they had to be absolutely say the worst thing that they could that was on their mind. And nobody was really thinking about some 20-year-old reading that and thinking, I wonder how Ferg's taking all this. It was very, 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 very hard. Didn't understand it.
But when you're 20, like that's you're not a man. That's like you're a kid. Like I'm nearly 39 years of age now, and I think I'm only starting to figure out what life's about now. When you're 20, you haven't a clue. When you're 25, you haven't a clue. When you're 30, you don't have a clue. Like it's
I mean, when I say a man, I'm thinking about from when I started as a kid, DJing and I'd gone through in normal life, like the growth of a kid to becoming a man or starting to become a man, I guess. But it was just very hard. People didn't really, they were coming to amnesia and stuff, and holding up placards like fuck off and play harder. And it wasn't good. Like it was hard. And ultimately, it was the right thing to do. It was a lot of hard decisions made. I remember Steve Thomas asked me to mix the first Tripoli Tracks compilation. And it was at the same time as this was all going on. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I have to. It was a huge honor for me. I mean, Tripoli back then was incredible, and I loved Steve. Like, but I had to make a decision. This is going to put me back in that hard house staple. Yeah, big time. So it was hard. And I had to kind of stick to my guns a bit. And there wasn't a lot of support, apart from my family and stuff like that. But, I didn't understand it and they didn't understand it either. So it was just getting pelted. But then, my mum said something that changed a lot for me. And that was that, Robert, you have to understand that these people are really annoyed with you about the Tony situation, but they're also annoyed about what you have done to them. It's very personal because these people have been putting their life, their time, traveling to see you at gigs, spending their wages that they've been working their ass off to go to your gigs, not going to one gig, not going to two, following you all around the place. Like, there was people used to follow me to Ibiza. I was going every week, so my mum was like, you need to stop looking at it like these people are full of hate. It's like, that's the only way they know how to channel their emotion. But they're just really sad that and angry that you've taken really good memories and a really good time that's been happening, and you've taken it from them, and now they hate you, they resent you, because it's like they no longer are looking at these memories as good times. They resent you now. And when she said that to me, it made me understand. And from that point on, when people were having these hate-filled remarks towards me, I would reply to them. I would make a point of replying to them and kind of trying to talk them through it. And they always, I've never had one yet that was just like, nah, the point of view changed when I was able to explain, I'm just a fucking normal person. Like, I'm just playing music. I'm just a DJ, like, you know what I mean?
It's not like we go and learn how to do any of this. We winged all this. Like, my entire career is just making it up as I go along. Nobody taught me how to do anything or learn anything or how to behave. It's just you learn by experience. That's the way it is. Yeah.
No, you're literally just someone that has been in the crowd, that loves the music as much as the person who's standing beside you, dancing, chewing their face off. But, you have put in the extra work to be up there supplying the music. It's the difference, it's the difference.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from there's jealousy involved in it as well. People are envious. Like you're there explaining this situation. Like, this was probably at the time when you were probably at the peak of your popularity and stuff. And from speaking to you, it's probably one of the unhappiest times as well. So like, people are looking at you thinking like you have this incredible job. You're traveling all over the world. You're playing here and there, but ultimately you weren't overly joyous with what was going on in your life at the same time. And like, I think people like it's probably the same way I look at like footballers, the lives they have, but like my job isn't a normal job per se, but the same for a footballer. It's still a job at the end of the day. It's still just a human being with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, the same as everybody else. It's a job is a job regardless of what it is that you actually do.
Totally. It was at that point when I started filling the DJ booth with just all my friends, and I was literally just playing for them at that point. I was just playing for people that were, whether they were blowing smoke up my arse or whatever it was. I just needed, and my whole head was just shot, confidence, everything just, it was very, very, you're just very unsure, you know what I mean? Like, of everything, because everything's being thrown at you, And back then, in them early days, all we had, for most part, obviously there was DJs making a lot of music, but for most part, all you had every week was the assurance of, if your gig was good, you're happy days. If you done a shit gig, then you're shit until your next gig. You didn't have any music or stats to back up and be like, oh, wow, I've got all these stats and I'm doing really well because Spotify says, or these downloads on this site. You didn't have any of that. If your last gig was shit, you're shit until your next one. Fucking deal with it, So when I was doing a lot of these gigs, there was just I was playing a lot of different music. And a lot of people were like, well, I don't know what Ferg's going to play. Do you know what I mean? Because I was so scared of being pigeonholed again. I didn't want to be like, okay, well, now I'm a trance DJ, or now I'm a techno DJ, or now I'm, you know what I mean? So I was literally just playing a bit of everything that I liked. And it was annoying for promoters and for people who had been supporting me for many years. But there's nobody sitting you down having a business meeting about developing yourself as a DJ and marketing and keeping keeping your core fans. Like, you were just a DJ that was getting booked to play at a party because you were playing good tunes. You know what I mean? There was no strategy. Do you know what I mean? People say to me, would you have changed anything looking back? No. How could I change anything? My life has been amazing. Plenty of ups and downs. It's been fucking interesting. It's easy for people to look back with rose-tinted glasses and look at the landscape. I dealt with the landscape how I felt best at the time with the knowledge that I had. You know what I mean? The knowledge that we all had. It wasn't a business. It wasn't a business. You were playing music because, like I just said, they're booking you because you play good music and it's a good buzz and maybe you're a little crazy Irish guy getting wasted. Okay, cool. There was never I was never even looking at it like, okay, they're booking me because I'm filling the club and they're charging into the club and the promoter's getting all this money. We're not even thinking, but then the thought didn't go that far for me. It really didn't go that far. I didn't think about it that much.
So this was like you were playing in probably at the top of the hard house scene for like 2 to 3 years, probably from about 99 to 02, and then around 02, 03 you started to sort of shift over to sort of the groovy techno. Was it around 02, 03 that you started?
01's when I was really shifting. That's when I was really shifting. So what happened was, I turned down the Triple E Tracks compilation. Then Ministry actually approached me and asked me to do 3 compilations for them. I done 2 and then they fucking cancelled the 3rd one. The first one was Hard Energy, where they picked all the songs. The second one, they tried to pick all the songs again for the headliners. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I didn't use one song that they picked. And that was the last one. They cancelled my 3rd one. They're like, whoa, you're not doing any more. I was like, well, you know what I mean? Like that Hard Energy is a fine representation of what hard house and kind of hard house meets BXR at the time sound. And I was playing all them songs, but I was playing all them songs 6 months before that. And then here they are wanting me to put on a comp, and I went with it because I was naive and they paid me a fucking shitload of money as well. So I was just like, oh my God, this is the Ministry and you got to go and do what they say. And the next one, not so much.
It was around this time that you did a really big show in a stadium up in Northern Ireland, was it? Was that in Larne that you did the big Radio 1 show?
2001, yeah. That was in 2001. That was my first. That was after. So what happened was Jules actually got my first Essential mix.
I think you did 13 in the end. Did you 13 Essential mixes?
Yeah, 13, yeah. 13, absolutely wasted. Done the first one. So massive props for Jules for getting me that. I was really close with Jules back then, man. Really close with him. I'm and Amanda, and he got me the first one. Then Radio 1 approached me to possibly do a pilot, and I'd done a pilot, and they were like, "Yeah, this is terrible. You sound as if you have a coat hanger stuck in your mouth. We won't be doing anything with it." And Matt Priest called me up then, and he asked me if I would be interested at all in being the first joint ever Essential Mix resident with Carl Cox.
Nice company.
Yeah. So, going from that first rave that I went to with Carl, the bomb scare, and then the being asked this, and was just mind blown. So I done that. That was the first kind of residency I had at Radio 1. Then they asked me if I wanted my own show. They gave me Danny Rambling's show. And another great comment that I'll never forget on the website was, why would you trade a Ferrari for an Escort? Obviously, I'm not the Ferrari. And they gave me Danny's show, and which was crazy for me because I used to sit at home listening to Pete Tong and love Groove Dance Party, so this was all surreal. But what it did heighten was that I started getting sent so many records, promos. So it heightened me playing even more various different styles. On a set, I'm playing Felix the House Cat, and I'm also playing BK, and I'm playing, Les Hemstock and Mirage, that stuff like that. So it was really across the board. And then I started really getting into techno. And at that point, it just wasn't a choice for me. It was just like this is it.
That's when it was unbelievable then around that era, all the real chunky 138, 140 banging Marco Bailey and Filter Heads and all that stuff. I used to go, Canziani, all that stuff. I used to go and watch Mauro Bocotto play for 6 hours at Gatecrasher around then. It was just...
Exactly, and I always hated playing with Mauro.
Did you?
Yeah, because my set was his set. I was playing all his tunes. So it was like, when I played with Mauro, it was like, there was part of me was trying to be respectful, and then the other part of me was like,
yeah, you want to do it. Yeah.
Fuck it. You gotta get
transponder, yeah.
And even at that stage, and I've said this to Mauro, one of the big things I do wish I'd have a little bit of regret. I wish I did spend a lot of time with Mauro, but I didn't know Mauro's history. I didn't know all of his history. I didn't know all of it. Like, them early Mauro Bocotto records were I was listening to RAF, that was the first, when I was going to the church disco, that was what the music were playing, the RAF stuff, and, Praga Khan and The Prodigy, and I didn't know that was all Mauro, Yeah. I did not know until later down the line. I was like, wow. And this is funny, I'm skipping forward here, but I have to mention it because of the Alpha Centauri track that I did, which is basically Fergie. Yeah. But when I was making it, I swear to God, I was not sitting down going, I wasn't making Verdi. It didn't. That's not. I posted a clip on Instagram, and people were like, "It's Verdi," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's Verdi." And just having that Mauro sound burnt into your head subconsciously, you have to trust me. If I'm ripping a song off, I will sit down and say, I'm going to rip this song off. There's an idea from it I want to take, and I'm just going to do it. That is not what happened with Alpha Centauri. It's not, and it's clear that's what it is, but that's not what happened. And people are like, that's really disrespectful, doing that tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, you fucking clown. I'm being rude. I don't care. You should go and listen to fucking old Mauro stuff back in the day. He was fucking ripping off Frank the Wolf left, right, and center. I said to Mauro, do you mind that I've used this here? It wasn't intentional. And he's like, just send me a copy. I absolutely love it, so. And someone did say to me, and rightly so, when I posted about it, I actually done a post about it on my Instagram, and they said, I really think you should have at least mentioned Mauro. And I went back and I redone the whole post, and I was like, do you know what? You're right. Even though I didn't intentionally set out to do it, that is what it is. There's no getting away from it. It is. That's what it is. And it's beautiful. And it was a big song for me back then. And it's ironic that it's come back and it's an even bigger song for me now. And I do like to mention people where the credit is there, where the inspirations come from. You know what I mean? That song, obviously I went with Davey Forbes. Davey Forbes perfected that sound for me. My version of Alpha Centauri couldn't have played it in a nightclub for sure. But that's not me. I'm an ideas. I will sit in this studio and I'll get the ideas together and I'll blah, 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 blah. The problem with my music is it sounds like it was made in the 90s.
That's perfect for now. That's what everyone wants to fucking hear.
Well, it is, but it's unfortunate. Like, the ideas are like the 90s, but the sound and the mixing qualities are also like the 90s. There's no much EQing going on with the bass and the kick and stuff like that, but that's why it sounds so good though, because there was no overthinking stuff. There's with production now, especially for me, there's too many options. There's too many sample packs. There's too many plugins. Back then, you took a kick and a bass, you put it together, and it sounds so clean, and that's why it works so well. And the reason why that 90s sort of sound is sort of working now is because the people who would have went out in the 90s have had kids, and those kids are now going out to venues and clubs, and they're probably after being growing up listening to the music that their mom and dad have been listening to, so they're just carrying it on. So this is why the 90s songs are so popular now, you know. So that's why it's a resurgence. I'm loving it, you know. And people say that me coming back, if you like, I mean, I was you won't know this, but I was done with DJing 7 months ago. I was actually done. I wasn't playing on Vegas anymore. I'm like, I'm not, I didn't want my contract. I didn't renew my contract with Hakkasan. I didn't, you know, we sold everything. We walked away. That was 2020 was my biggest earning year ever. And I ended up not earning any of it because of COVID. We just finished building our dream home. It took us 2 years. Like, this place was incredible. And we had to walk away from everything. We left it and went and lived in a caravan. It was mental. But it was a beautiful, I was so happy. My wife was like, what's going on? But I was hating going to work so much. I was doing, 20 odd gigs a month, playing that music. You know, when it's music that you're playing, it's bypassing your heart and it's just going to your head and you're down your hands in the air.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different emotional roller coaster.
It's work,
you know?
Yeah, it feels like work.
You know, and I was doing 250 shows a year, you know, it was a lot. And becoming very, very, very hard. And, you know, I was still having the pride of wanting to do the best show I can do. I'm not into this music, but here I am. I've learned to read the room. I've learned, you know, it's more like maths over here. Every record has an exact purpose. It's reaction. You know, there's no kind of, the fillers have a purpose, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. But it was just all really intense, you know, especially the amount of money people pay in here. Like, I've been in there, people spend $1 million. $1 million? A couple of bottles of beer. Unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? It's mad. It was just a lot of pressure. And so when that all came to a head, you know, I was like, I am 3 weeks into this. I'm like, I'm so happy. I don't want to go back to doing that as much or doing that at all, sorry, at that point. And I had started becoming a life coach, started doing all my exams and getting heavily into that. I felt that I still had a purpose within the music industry, the creative world. You know, I've 11 of my friends have killed themselves since 2006. I felt that there was something more I could give someone that has been in that world, that I've been sober for many years, and, you know, there must be something else I can give. You know, so I still do a lot of that. But my wife said to me, why don't you just play some music you love? And it never dawned on me. Because I've been here for 10 years on that, you know, you got to play this, you have to play this, blah, 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 blah. It never dawned on me. And Barry from Fresh DJs, actually, you know, he had put some old school gigs in for me. And the plan was that I would just go and do some kind of old school gigs. And then it had already got my mind thinking. So I'm like, fuck it, in the studio key, and I sent him a couple of ideas, and he was like, I just got to be honest with you that like you have got to come like this. These ideas have got to come out. Like you've got to come back. You have to come back. It's a perfect time. You know, people are really wanting that older sound done in a new way. And, you know, if you're ever going to come back, now's the time. Like techno is not as, you know, as it used to be. Like the gatekeepers that held me back when I was trying to make it in techno, them doors are not there anymore. You know, I had all these techno institution DJs that weren't comfortable with me, Fergie, the hard house guy, coming and playing these gigs. So I went as far as I could back then in the techno thing.
That was what I wanted to ask you. Did you ever feel fully accepted into that scene?
No, never. No. Oh, and that's why I came here, because they were all, when I started putting techno out,
because you worked with Maro, you made Funky Town and Funky Tech, and you had a few other
gigs. Yeah. And that was very commercial
stuff.
Yep. And but even then, you know, when I was putting stuff out initially, none of the DJs were
playing it, supporting it.
They weren't supporting it, and then it got to the stage where they were supporting it, but they weren't leaving reactions. They weren't putting their name to anything, and then it just came from, you know, I actually had to really start picking and choosing what gigs I was doing. So I was getting thousands of dollars doing some gigs, but I had to stop doing them, you know. Then I would go and play. I had to take a year out from playing in Scotland, in Glasgow, so as I could go and play at Pressure, the techno thing.
Yeah, Slam.
Yeah, and the drop, and like they were paying me like £500. So I'd gone from these, and people would say, "Oh, you do this for the money, you do that for the money." And at that point, it certainly wasn't. You weren't playing techno for the money. You just weren't. And then even though people, I got to a certain stage, but this is a very important point, and you touched on it. That them early years, because techno wasn't what it was then, you know what I mean? But them early years, that beat, that chunkiness, that tempo, it was still driving, right? So I was able to go and play that set in God's Kitchen or at the festivals and blah, blah, blah. It was being accepted because of the energy in it.
Yeah.
But then once that was becoming
minimal, all that slowed down. And
what happened was what happens with the techno guys, we see it every time when people who are not normally into techno gravitate towards techno, then the techno people drop the tools on that sound and they'll go to something totally different. We've seen it with the techno scene at the minute. If you look at peak time techno, it's more of a
trance. Yeah.
So you go and look at what the other guys are doing in the industrial hard techno, totally different, because they don't want the association, you know what I mean? So that's what happened. And then I followed that curve of the techno thing. I tried to follow it. But what happened was I was alienating my crowd so much, and I'm playing like 130 BPM plinkety plunkety.
Yeah, I remember all that type of stuff. Yeah, it was real.
Yeah,
just had no energy.
And Bear was doing it as well. Yeah. Bear done it. I remember sitting after parties with Bear, and we were talking about it, and we're playing all this music stuff, and it was really
trippy.
And Bear was getting slagged off for it because they love Bear for being Bear and hard, but we were just trying to go on this. It was interesting because it was fresh and blah blah blah, but again, you weren't thinking about you're just thinking about it as a music lover and finding new stuff. And that crowd was very, very cool. And there was no way that they were letting me in. Even more so, no way. So, you know, I was doing, as I said before, 15, 20 gigs for a long time. And I was flying to a lot of places, but I was flying to every hole in the hedge. You know, maybe I'm going to a gig in Bulgaria and it's taking me 5 flights to get there. Like it's some, you know, you got a half a turntable and half a speaker, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like,
why am I doing this? Yeah.
What am I doing? And I really felt that I was like I was having all these guys on. I was having Ben Sims on the show. I was having Coxie. I was having Sven Houghton. Dave Clark was co-hosting the show. Everybody was on there. It was definitely, at that time, it was the biggest outlet for techno music. But it's strange, not strange, it's interesting that not being accepted into it, you know, like they were happy you were playing the music, but the door was, the invitation was
It's
only,
like you were being used nearly. Like it was like it's someone that you'd ring up at 2 o'clock in the morning if there was no one else around. That sort of thing.
yeah,
That's what they were doing to you.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it was, you know, even that the Mixed Mag Funky Techno CD I put out in 2003, there was nothing really happening like that, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a way ahead of its time. And ultimately, that's when my radio show came to an end as well. You know, they sat me down and they were like, we need you to go back to Hard House. I'm like, well, I'm 4 years deep into this techno at the minute. Like, there's no way you can go back to that. They're like, well, you're not hitting the demographic of the age demographic that we need you to be hitting and why we brought you to the station. I said, but you brought me to the station 5 years ago. Like, my demographic is not that demographic now anyway. They were like, the sounds just matured way too much. And yeah, you know, we don't want to continue the show in this format. If you want to change, then great. I was like, well, I can't. I physically can't. I couldn't change. I couldn't. I just couldn't. In my heart, I couldn't. And I couldn't, like, you can't go from techno back to Hard House then, even though that's what we're kind of doing a little bit now. Back then, it just wouldn't have happened. And, you know, I was 26 at the time, which is incredibly young for having that
experience of life. Yeah.
And my big fear was anybody that Radio 1 parted companies with back in the day was 50 or 40. They were older people. So I'm saying to Ian Parkinson and Matt Priest, you know, we need to figure out how this is dealt with, because I'm 26. Like, as soon as I'm off Radio 1, it's going to be like, oh, well, Ferg's shit now. You know, so they really, for the first time ever, really went to town and really helped that transition. I don't know if you know anybody at Radio 1, but once, if you're in, you're in. Once you're out, you're out. Like, it's this Radio 1 bubble. It's a very special thing. And they really went to town. You know, my last show, they asked me where I wanted to do it again. Obviously, I wanted to go and do it back in Ireland again. So I done it at Kelly's. Actually, the first time I ever played at Kelly's. And, you know, they gave me 6 hours. They gave me 2 hours for this. They give me the 2 hours for my show. They give me my show for 2 hours, and they give me 2 hour essential mix. It's unheard of them. And that was it. That was the last show. I done an hour essential mix 2007. And if you listen to that essential mix, it is so good. But it didn't connect with people. People hated it because it was so I'd done it on Ableton. I wanted to make it all like one record. And at that point I was so into like really
transitions and stuff,
putting stuff together, and it was like, you know, I listen to it now and I'm like, oh fuck. But for what I was trying to do at that time, that was a great essential mix, but ultimately that was my last one.
And how did the move to America come about?
The move to America came about. My good friend Neil Moffat, who I met in the 90s. He's the guy who developed God's Kitchen after, you know, Tyrone de Savary and Chris Griffiths.
Is that Neil Navarra? It's the same guy, no?
No, Moffat. Yeah, Neil Navarra was a resident DJ.
Yeah.
Great guy.
I met him a couple of times, I thought it might have been the same guy, just with a different name.
So what happened was, in the early 2000s, Neil came on tour with me to America on my visa, and he ended up coming back more. I never liked coming back to America that much, because back then they were really scared of the rave culture and the dance scene, and you could turn up to a gig and the fire marshals could stop a gig at any time. They just weren't, and they didn't want it happening. But done a gig in Vegas, 2001. Neil kept coming back here, and then he developed the Hakkasan brand, Omnia, Wet Republic. The list goes on. I think they ended up having like 50 places around the world, restaurants, clubs. Like, he walked away. He moved on now, but he invited me over 2010, and then it was 2000. I fought with the idea for ages, because I'm like, I can't go and play that music, And then for a couple of years, I kept on doing what I was doing. And I was like, do you know what? I think it's time. I need to change it up. And I came here and I was doing maybe 20, 30 gigs, playing house music on the terrace at the nightclub at the time called Pure. And then it just developed as the scene, the EDM scene grew and grew and grew. And then I'm getting offered more work, and then I'm getting offered big contract, and then all of a sudden I'm doing 250 shows, and I'm like, fuck. You're just going non-stop, And it was a great period. I was able to look at it at the start, going to the first EDC here in Vegas and standing with my hands on the railings, looking at everybody and going, okay, what is this? What is going on here? And I'm looking at it, and everybody's dressed up like Crasher kids.
Yeah.
So for a big part of that for me was like, okay, this is not too far removed from
10 years ago in the UK. Yeah.
So how can I get my mind into this and create an opportunity for myself where I can understand that my musical knowledge and where I've moved throughout the scene for many years, that I am able to now look at this as a job, which I've never done in the past. And I've always gone with my heart. But now, for this point in time, I need to go with their heart, look at them and understand, okay, the only thing I have in common with these people now is I know what I was feeling as a kid listening to this music for the first time. The Prodigy wasn't underground. It was more of a commercial sound, right? You're listening to Praga Khan on Top of the Pops and stuff like that. So I had to transport my mindset way back and go, okay, I need to put myself back in the grassroots and understand that I am delivering this music to a lot of these people for the first time. John Joe from Alabama has heard Calvin Harris on the radio on the taxi to the way to the airport and hasn't got a clue. It's called EDM. So that's the people that I am pointing to. How can I be respectful to them, give them a good night, give them the first taste of a DJ set as true to who I am as possible, with also adding these different genres into the set? How can I make it a cohesive thing for them? How can I start to read the room? How can I understand that there's so many different genres that I'm playing in the room, but how can I get everybody's hands in the air at one time, even though they like different stuff? That was a challenge for me. And that's what got me through being able to be here for all them years. And obviously I had a fucking great contract. Let's not forget that. But first and foremost, that's what my head had to be thinking to listen to that music. And at the time, it's really funny, at the time, the EDM sound was heavily leaning on a sound. It was called Melbourne Bounce.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
Offbeat bass line. And I'm like, okay, I can find some hoovers and horns in there. Do you know what I mean? I can go back to that era and I can go back to my youth and I can deliver that. I know how to deliver that. So there was a lot of that thinking went into it. And, a lot of people were, some backlash is starting again. And I'm like, okay, well, I've also been here as well. I've dealt with these backlashes again. So, and obviously I was a lot older then, 32. I'm dealing with things better and have dealt with the bombardment of confusion from people. So it was an easier passage than the hard house situation.
Yeah. And what was it like living in Vegas during the pandemic?
Brilliant. And I say that from my own personal experience. It wasn't brilliant for everybody. It was brilliant for me and my wife because we really decided to change our life. I sold my whole studio. I sold absolutely everything in the house. I don't know if you've seen my studio or anything, but incredible. Like, I had the biggest modular Moog you've ever seen that I built. I had absolutely everything. My fascination was with old gear. I was shipping all the original synths from Japan. Like, I'm paying a big dollar for them because I didn't want them to have one scratch on it. So I'm paying premium for this stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I want to sell everything. I want to get rid of everything and just be really light and really free of everything. I don't want to take my contract back. I don't want to have to take gigs, that much gigs again. I don't want to be on the treadmill of, bagging myself into a corner because I created this incredibly expensive lifestyle that was just really unattainable. It wasn't making me happy. You're buying stuff to create happiness. Oh yeah, you get that happiness for 5 seconds, and you're buying something else, and just freeing ourselves from that. And as I say, we went and lived in the RV for a bit, and just really trying to evaluate what we wanted our life to be. And it was a beautiful time because we didn't have to go to work. We were able to be calm. We were ready to relax into this new kind of being that we wanted to be, and very thankful for that time through the COVID period. And as I say, listen, everybody had to make a lot of sacrifices. It was our biggest earning year that we never earned. And, we live now on, we make sure our expenses are really minimal. So as we have more time together, more time to do stuff, you know what I mean? So it's been a beautiful thing for us.
Yeah, I noticed from your Instagram and your stories, there's a lot of quotes and philosophical things. Is that obviously you have a very spiritual side to you as well? Is that something that you cultivated during the pandemic, or would it have been there beforehand?
It was there before, but didn't really know, how to channel it or, how to be with it. I've always been a very happy person within me. Maybe I've put things in my life that have been huge obstacles that have made me unhappy, but generally speaking, I'm an easily happy person. My wife will tell you she's never met anybody as happy as me, which is good. But there's always been that side of me, definitely more so now, doing a lot more reading, doing a lot more searching in that world. I guess my life was very numb of a lot of stuff for many years because of drug abuse or alcohol or whatever it was, So when I took that away as well, it gave me a lot more space for this to kind of grow, and that's another story, I've done nearly 500 gigs now sober, so it was a big change. It was something I tried to change for a long time. Even when I was at Radio 1, I was trying to stop drinking, and I didn't have a drink for 2 weeks, and they were like, Fergie, your sounds fucking shit, mate. You're very stiff. Here's a wee friggin' 24 pack of Smirnoff Ice, mate. Get it in you.
It's tough though, DJing sober, especially because you can just feel very. For me, I've done it a good few times as well because I've sort of cleaned up how I've been living in the last few years. But it just feels like very self-conscious at times to be playing to a lot of people who are looking at you, especially like intimate shows where people are right in front of you. And if you're not, for me, I find it difficult to sort of let loose or to let my face know that I'm actually enjoying it. I am enjoying it, but I just can't feel a little bit.
Let my face know that I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
I probably look like I'm not having fun, but I am actually having fun. I just need to let
someone
myself.
Stole your Christmas dinner. No, it's right, and it's like I am totally different with it now. You know, I feel so comfortable doing it, and I actually feel like I am delivering a better show to people in the club. You know, you know, people say, "Oh, well, you're lost in the moment when you're drinking." Well, you're not really ever lost in the moment as a DJ, because how can you be? You're always two or three tracks.
You have to be in the moment. Yeah, you're thinking all the time. You're thinking what's coming up next and four tracks ahead and stuff.
You know, the people that are in the crowd, they're in their moment, but they're not in the same moment.
No,
it's a different moment. Yeah, you know, and that's what I love. I love going listening to Black Coffee, and I love playing with him. He's beautifully what's the word? Can't think of the word. It's going to annoy me now. Beautifully unpredictable would be the word. The energy he has, I mean, you're just never going to know what song he's going to play next. It's a totally different. He just plays totally different. You know, he's unpredictable. It's great. It's like, how would I describe it? It's like when you go to a Black Coffee show, it's like you really feel the energy. You're not seeing the energy. People are not fist pumping. They're not going crazy. It's just this anticipation, this growing energy. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. My favorite DJ of the last 20 years for sure.
Very, very good. So just before we go, just to tip on what you're up to now. Obviously, like in the last year or so, you've made a comeback with the productions and stuff of Alpha Centauri and Take You There and Level Up and other stuff like that, and on Armada. What's going on for you at the moment? Obviously, as well, you're with a DJ agency, Fresh. That was one of the first proper agencies I was with as well. So it's good to see that you're there with Barry.
Yeah.
So what's going on in Fergie's life at the moment, studio-wise?
Fergie Land, we are putting out our 5th single next week, Phenomenon, with Armada. So that's been an absolutely great experience. James Armada's been incredible. He was the first person to hit me up and was like, even before, you know, I was deciding to go back into DJing, like I was done, and he was like, do you want to remix Misha and Tim Access? I was like, oh. I was saying to my wife, I was like, I'm not going to be involved in the scene anymore, but I'm really interested in doing this remix. But yeah, we're going to do more stuff with Armada. I'm just constantly in the studio. We've got some really great stuff coming up, and I'm making sure it all has a little nod to the years gone by, just because that's what does it for me. Trying to, you know, have a little dip my toe, keep my toe dipped in there a little bit. Been working on my Instagram for a long time. I didn't post anything on it. You know, I'm like, I had no interest in posting it. I'm on me tonight, or I am with Zed tonight. It's going to be great. Because people that follow me are like, Ferg, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I feel the same on doing that shit. It's training.
You know, so my Instagram, I wanted to post less and connect more. So what could I post about that I actually wanted to reply to people about? And it was started off, I think the first post was like, you know, talking about your first rave that you went to. And, you know, so my stories, which is interesting because my stories are all long form. which in this day and age when people's attention span is very small, they read my stories. And not only do they read my stories, they reply with their own stories that they've got from the memory of my story.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. We're on there and we're just connecting. And I try and keep my posts real. I try and be honest. And I try, I don't try and be like, oh, this is brilliant all the time and this is like the best thing ever. It's what we do is part of your soul, yes, but there's parts of it that are annoying as fuck, and it's like all the stuff that you go through to be a DJ. That's the shit you get paid for, right? The part you go and play the music is like very small part. You go to get to do the actual part you enjoy for 2 hours. As maybe taking you,
a day,
3, 4 hours work or whatever and shit, whatever it is to do that 2 hours and it flies by and you're like, okay, fuck. So just trying to keep it as real as it can. And it's just nice connecting with people, a lot of older followers and getting a lot of newer followers and just connection, keeping that going. And I've actually the Dawn. I've just remixed it.
Really, yeah.
Send it to you when we finish here.
Very good.
Give me your view on it. Yeah. So I never wanted to remix the Tony track. Then I heard once I was getting back into doing the production, and I was really happy with the sound. I was like, okay. I would love to remix Are You Already? And I asked Tidy Tracks if I could mix it, and they were like, no. They wouldn't let me do it. I mean, and I was really disappointed because I was with Tony when he made Are You Already? I was sat in the studio with him when he was making it. So it was disappointing. But then Tim Benz at New State hit me up and asked me to do the Dawn. So I spoke to Tony's sister about it. And yeah, I've done it, and I've tried to keep it as close to the original as I can. I want to obviously leave a huge respect there for Tony, but bring it up to date just a little bit. I'll send it to you, see what you think, man.
Yeah, that's a track I remixed a long time ago as well. It got released on Tidy. If I made it now, it'd probably sound a lot better. But as you were saying earlier on, we did these things how we did them back then. We didn't have the knowledge that we know now, but I did. I'm proud to say that I remixed one of the best tracks ever, and hopefully did some kind of justice to it at that time.
It's a huge task, and people say to me, you better make it as good as ever. I'm not. Yeah, I'm like, the original is the original. Like, I'm all I'm trying to do with it is give it a new lease of life. Like, I'm trying to first and foremost lay down a huge slab of respect that I have for Tony and keeping it as similar as I can to the original, and just give it a new lease of life and maybe get his name out there in some way. I'm not trying to, like, you can't make it any better. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? You're not making it like so you're opening yourself, especially me doing this, you're opening yourself for huge criticism, but I wouldn't have ultimately, I said, let me have a crack at it. And if I'm happy with it, then yes. If I'm not, I think I'm very, very happy with how it's turned out. I think it really sits in the sound that I'm doing at the minute. It's a great time for me to be coming back into this scene. It's kind of feels like a perfect match. It's one of the big problems was when I was playing techno, it was so far removed from the hard house stuff. But this, from people who know me from playing techno, will listen to the sound that I'm making now and will still be able to get on board with it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, it sounds like Ferg. You know what I mean? It's not too different from what they will remember from the stuff I was putting out on eccentric music and stuff like that. But just want to mention, you mentioned Barry from Fresh, and he's been a huge inspiration for me coming back into all this, and I've been learning a hell of a lot from him, you know. Some of the stuff he's been pulling out has been unbelievable. You know, I don't know if you've seen that tour I've done for the 5 weeks, like
in the UK, yeah. It was excellent.
It was the lineups he was getting me on, because, you know, I'm coming back and I'm like, oh, well, you know, I've been Fergie playing EDM for the last 10 years in Vegas. That's, you know, the hard house thing was a bit of a push, so I'm not sure if I can come back from doing what I've done. And he made it happen. You know, obviously Carl got on board, and, you know, the Colours, Ricky and Julie, and, you know, getting the gigs with Charlotte DeWitt and Camel Fat and Art Bat and all this malarkey's been incredible. Leeds Warehouse, brilliant. Ben Nicky show was huge. We Are Festival. What else did I do? I forget the other one. Can't remember. So many. It was like I'd done like fucking 10 gigs in that little period. It was just.
And have you more plans to come back to the UK, Ireland this year?
Yeah, they wanted me to come back for 4 gigs in February, but it's just been too crazy over here with all the COVID stuff, so it's not going to happen. But definitely going to be doing some stuff in Ireland for sure. Yeah, so it's just like great times, mate. You know, it's like we're just kind of getting the music out there, and, you know, that's another world in itself. You know, I just posted a thing, we just hit 1 million plays on Spotify for Alpha Centauri, which is incredible for us. You know, 6 months ago we had 600 monthly listeners on Fergie page, you know, and I never even set the Fergie page up. I didn't even know there was a Fergie page, so someone else set it up. So we went from 600 listeners to, you know, so it's 1 million plays in the grand scheme of things as being an artist nowadays is not loads, but it's huge for us. It's massive. And, you know, one thing I will say is this, you know, when I was back in the day, when I was doing a lot of DJ schools with my mum and stuff like that, you know, a lot of the kids would ask, what's the most enjoyable part of making it as a DJ? And I always said, the beginning, you know, the getting your foot on the ladder, getting your name on the flyer, you know, getting all these things for the first time. That hunger that you have then is like nothing else. So, you know, here I am being able to have that all over again. Like you're starting over again in many, many ways. And to be able to look at it with them fresh eyes and be like, okay, you know, okay, we don't have the most followers on Instagram, or, you know, I have to do the open set at this festival. And what do I like about that? Oh, you like about that is like the hunger, the trying, you know, it's like knowing what you know, but also having respect for the scene and getting back in there and just understanding how precious them things are. And that's one of the things I'm most thankful for, you know, being able to look at it with experienced eyes, but also an understanding of where I'm at right now. I'm not where I used to be at, right? So it's brilliant.
Perfect. I think that's the perfect way to end this podcast. Fergie, thanks very much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, and I hope the next time that we meet will be in person and not on Zoom. So just want to say thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, man.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. It was great to actually hear your story. It's incredible. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, man. Take care.